the one I thought was built on bedrock, shattered the day an anonymous package arrived. It wasn't a birthday gift, a forgotten holiday card, or even a mundane bill. It was a plain brown wrapper, unceremonious, slightly crumpled at the edges, yet holding the undeniable weight of a decade of hidden truths and intricate lies. The morning sun, usually a cheerful companion in my kitchen in Queens, New York, felt suddenly harsh, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, mirroring the chaotic swirling of my own thoughts. Inside, nestled amongst layers of tissue paper, was a stack of yellowed documents and a handwritten letter. The paper was brittle, the ink faded in places, but the elegant script was unmistakable. It was from my grandma Rose. Her delicate handwriting, usually associated with loving birthday cards or recipes for her famous apple pie, now felt like a ghost reaching out from beyond the grave, pulling me into a past I thought I knew, but clearly didn't. The documents were legal papers, brittle with age and crackling softly as I handled them, detailing the last will and testament of Rose Eleanor Hastings. And there, buried within the formal language and legalese, was the shocking truth. The beautiful, sprawling cedar home in the Adirondacks, the one my Aunt Carol and Uncle David always affectionately and quite possessively referred to as the family cabin, was never truly theirs. It was mine. Explicitly, unequivocally mine. Grandma Rose had left it to me, her only stipulation being that I keep it, cherish it, and ensure it remained a place for warmth and cherished memories. A place for my memories, specifically. My grandmother had always been a woman of quiet strength and sharp intellect, even in her later years. She loved that house, a place where generations of our family had gathered for summer barbecues on the expansive deck overlooking the lake, crisp autumn hikes through trails painted in fiery colors, and cozy winter holidays by the stone fireplace sharing stories and laughter. She had spoken often of its significance, its role as the heart of our family, but never once had she, or anyone else, indicated it would one day be solely mine. The revelation hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I stood there, the distinct scent of old paper mingling with the faint aroma of the betrayal now filling my nostrils, watching the afternoon sun filter through my kitchen window. The light, once a symbol of comfort, now felt more like a blinding spotlight on my sudden, horrifying realization. My own aunt and uncle, Carol and David, the very people I had shared countless Thanksgivings and Christmases with, the ones who always seemed so devoted to family values and tradition, who had raised their children alongside me as if we were siblings, had deliberately hidden my grandmother's last wish. They had twisted her legacy, turning her tender bequest into a secret they believed they could bury forever. The shock didn't just rattle me, it ripped through the very fabric of my understanding, unraveling years of assumed trust and affection, leaving me adrift in a turbulent sea of deceit. The vibrant hum of the city outside, the distant sirens, the chatter of neighbors from their brownstones, the rhythmic clatter of the elevated train shaking the very ground, seemed to mock the sudden, profound silence in my world, a silence now filled only with the deafening roar of a betrayal I never saw coming. This wasn't just about a house or a piece of property. It was about my grandmother's love, her trust, her final wishes, all twisted and concealed by the very people who claimed to love and honor her most. It was as if a part of my own history, my own identity, had been stolen and hidden from me, replaced by a carefully constructed illusion. The betrayal wasn't abstract. It was personal, intimate, and deeply painful. Has anything like this ever happened to you, where family secrets came to light and completely changed your perspective on those closest to you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear how this story of uncovering the truth unfolds. The drive upstate a few days later was a blur of shifting emotions, a tumultuous journey through anger, confusion, and a burgeoning sense of resolute determination. The leaves on the trees along the I-87, winding north through the picturesque Hudson Valley and deeper into the rugged beauty of the Adirondacks, were just starting to turn. It was a spectacular blaze of reds, oranges, and yellows, the kind of quintessential New England autumn beauty that usually filled me with a nostalgic warmth and a sense of belonging. But now, that breathtaking scenery felt completely at odds with the cold, churning storm brewing inside me. The package with Grandma Rose's will, a flimsy collection of papers now loaded with monumental significance, was clutched tight at my passenger seat, a silent, damning companion. I rehearsed the impending conversation in my head 100 times, imagining their reactions, their explanations, their inevitable apologies. None of my scenarios, none of the carefully constructed dialogues, prepared me for the callous, almost theatrical reality. When I finally arrived at the lake house, the scene was one of perfect, almost cliché American family idyllic. Carol and David were there, in their element, setting up for their annual Labor Day barbecue. The familiar scent of grilling burgers mingled with the crisp, earthy fragrance of pine needles and damp lake air, creating an inviting tableau of warmth and togetherness. A red, white, and blue banner hung above the porch, fluttering gently in the breeze. Children, my cousin's kids, laughed as they chased a golden retriever puppy across the sprawling lawn, their joyful shouts echoing across the still waters of the lake. It was a picture-perfect facade, a scene plucked from a glossy magazine, a postcard from a life that was, for me, rapidly disintegrating beneath the weight of their deception. I approached them, the package held conspicuously in my hand, its plainness a stark contrast to the vibrant setting. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor I felt originating deep within my hands. Their smiles, initially so broad and welcoming, faltered. A flicker of something, recognition, panic, a fleeting moment of being caught, crossed David's eyes before he quickly masked it with an expression of feigned concern. Carol, ever the actress, burst into tears almost on cue, her hands flying to her face. "Oh, honey, what's wrong? You look so upset." She sobbed, dabbing her eyes with a perfectly pressed silk handkerchief, her mascara remarkably intact. The performance had begun. I laid the documents on the heavy oak picnic table, placing them deliberately in the center, allowing the weight of their revelation to completely silence the festive atmosphere. Their eyes, wide with a mixture of disbelief and carefully controlled fear, scanned the pages, lingering on Grandma Rose's signature, then on my name. For a moment, the silence was absolute, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the distant caw of a crow and the soft lapping of the lake against the shore. Then the floodgates of their denial and manipulation opened. They immediately launched into a well-rehearsed symphony of excuses and false explanations, a practiced duet of victimhood. Carol claimed Grandma Rose had been confused in her later years, her mind slipping, suggesting the will was a mistake, a misunderstanding that they had been meaning to rectify for ages. David, ever the pragmatist and the one to handle the dirty work, chimed in, saying it was merely a temporary measure to avoid complicated probate headaches, which they had simply forgotten to properly address in the chaos of Grandma's passing. "We were just protecting you." "Honey," Carol sniffed, her voice dripping with feigned concern and maternal worry. "Managing the property for your benefit." Then came the insidious emotional manipulation, the guilt trip. "After all we've done to keep this place up," David added, his voice tinged with a wounded pride. "A carefully constructed sense of injustice, paying for all the major repairs, the rising property taxes, the constant upkeep, ... You just want to kick us out? After we put so much of our time and money and love into it?" Their voices, usually so warm and welcoming, now sounded like nails on a chalkboard, each word a carefully constructed lie designed to deflect blame. elicit sympathy, and generate guilt. Other family members started arriving, drawn by the sudden silence and the palpable tension. Their initial greetings faltered, their smiles dissolving as they sensed the heavy atmosphere. Whispers started, glances were exchanged, directed first at me with curiosity, then at Carol and David with sympathy, then back to me with a growing unease. I could feel the invisible knives aimed at my back, the silent judgment beginning to form. They were experts at manipulation, masters of playing the victim. They twisted the narrative, painting me as the greedy, selfish niece, the one disrupting sacred family harmony over a mere misunderstanding about an old house. The very people who had benefited from their deceit were now positioned as the wrong parties, suffering at the hands of my supposed avarice. That night, alone in the small guest house by the lake, the cool autumn wind rattling the window panes like a restless spirit, I couldn't sleep. The lake water lapped softly against the shore, a quiet, rhythmic sound that usually brought peace, but now somehow amplified the turmoil in my mind. The house, once a beacon of comfort and tradition, now felt like a monument to their deceit. Every crack in the old foundation, every faded curtain, seemed to whisper tales of hidden agendas. It was clear then their misunderstanding was a deliberate, calculated theft of my inheritance and, more importantly, a desecration of my grandmother's memory. The perfect family portrait was crumbling, revealing the rot beneath a deeper, uglier truth than I could have ever imagined. My chest ached with the weight of it all, a grief not just for what was lost, but for the shattering of an entire reality, a childhood illusion of a loving, honest family. I knew with chilling certainty that this was only the beginning. The battle had just begun, and I was in it alone. The truth, as they say, always finds a way out, no matter how deeply it's buried under layers of family history and deception. And trust me, the best part of this story, the moment where everything truly shifts and the tables turn, is still to come. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single detail of how I finally confronted their elaborate web of lies and fought back. The more I thought about their suddenly extravagant lifestyle, the new luxury cars parked ostentatiously in their driveway, gleaming like status symbols, the frequent social media posts about exotic trips to Aruba, Aspen, and even a European cruise, the endless parade of designer clothes Carol seemed to acquire every season, the more the pieces clicked into place, forming a disturbing mosaic of calculated avarice. These weren't the actions of people struggling to maintain an old family lake house, constantly complaining about a leaky roof or rising property taxes as they had claimed for years. This was calculated, blatant opportunism, thinly veiled by cries of sacrifice. I knew David's small, niche real estate business had been faltering for a while. He'd even hinted at serious financial troubles during a tense Thanksgiving dinner a few years back, his face drawn and anxious. Now, the sudden, inexplicable reversal of fortune made sickening, horrifying sense. I started digging, armed with Grandma Rose's undeniable will and a righteous fury that fueled my every move. I pulled up public records, spending hours online and at the county clerk's office in the nearest small town, poring over property tax documents, zoning permits, and anything else I could find related to the lake house. I found glaring discrepancies in the property tax records, vague entries in their handwritten expense logs for the house that Carol had once, shown me entries that were frustratingly lacking in receipts, dates, or proper documentation. It was all smoke and mirrors, a financial shell game designed to obfuscate the truth and create a paper trail of plausible deniability. Every vague explanation, every feigned sigh about the burden of the lake house, every lament about rising costs now replayed in my mind as a twisted, cynical performance designed to pull wool over my eyes, thought my best friend. Sarah, a pragmatic New Yorker with a sharp mind and an even sharper wit, suggested I talk to someone who knew my family dynamics well, someone objective and legally savvy, not just some generic lawyer. That's when I remembered an old friend of my late father's, a lawyer named Arthur Hayes. Dad had always trusted Arthur implicitly, often recounting stories of their college days at Syracuse University and their early careers practicing law in upstate New York. Arthur had a reputation for being honest, tenacious, and fiercely intelligent, known for his commitment to justice even in small-town disputes. He was based in Albany, the state capital, a city I knew well from college trips and family visits. I called him, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and desperation as I recounted the whole convoluted story. Arthur listened patiently, his steady, calm voice a balm to my frayed nerves, offering quiet affirmations as I spoke. He agreed to meet me the following week. In his cluttered but cozy office, overlooking the historic state capitol building, the comforting scent of old books and freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Arthur, with his reading glasses perched on his nose, meticulously reviewed the stack of papers I brought, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. He didn't interrupt, his intense gaze fixed on every word, every date, every signature. Then he found what I'd missed, a critical detail hidden in plain sight, a red flag that screamed fraud. The house had been used as collateral for several substantial loans that far exceeded any supposed repairs or maintenance they claimed to have performed. Loans that chillingly, perfectly matched the timeline of Carol and David's sudden, unexplained affluence. Arthur explained that Grandma Rose had indeed been clear in her will. More than that, she had even expressed concerns about Carol and David's financial habits in confidential conversations with him, a few years before she passed, confiding her worries about their recklessness. She'd explicitly wanted me to have the house, knowing I would cherish it as she did. She'd seen something in me, a steady, grounded quality, a respect for history and sentiment that she feared was lacking in her other children. The confirmation from Arthur, a respected figure whose integrity was unquestionable, solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about a house or money. It was about protecting my grandmother's legacy and unearthing the deceit that had festered for years. This wasn't just a family misunderstanding. It was a calculated act of fraud against a vulnerable elderly woman and then against me, her rightful heir. I noticed a faded photograph on Arthur's desk, my dad and him, younger, laughing, fishing on a sun-dappled lake, likely the very one that bordered my grandmother's house. A wave of bittersweet determination washed over me. I wasn't fighting just for myself anymore. I was fighting for my grandmother, for her memory, and for the honest, principled man my father had been. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a fire in my belly that replaced the lingering sadness, a burning desire for justice. This wasn't just my battle. It was a battle for truth, a fight to reveal the ugly reality that had been deliberately obscured. And I was ready to win, no matter the cost. The more I uncovered, the uglier and more intricate the web of deceit became. Carol and David weren't just neglecting their duties as temporary custodians of the house. They were actively siphoning off its value, slowly and methodically draining its equity for their own selfish gain. They had taken out multiple lines of credit against the property, mortgaging my inheritance to fund their increasingly lavish lifestyle. It wasn't just expensive vacations. There were payments for their daughter's exorbitant wedding in the Hamptons, a brand new fishing boat for David that sat proudly on the lake, and endless shopping sprees for Carol on Fifth Avenue, all while claiming the house was a financial burden. The receipts Arthur helped me unearth were sickening, a stark catalog of their greed, but their betrayal went even deeper than mere financial fraud. Arthur discovered chilling evidence that they had deliberately manipulated Grandma Rose in her final years, when her memory was starting to fade. They had presented her with complicated financial documents disguised as routine paperwork, preying on her vulnerability and her unwavering trust in her own children. There were doctored medical records, too, showing exaggerated claims of care provided to my grandmother that simply never happened, fabricated to justify additional withdrawals from her accounts for medical expenses that were nothing more than a fiction. This wasn't just fraud. It was elder abuse, a sickening thought that made my stomach churn with a mixture of rage and profound sadness. To think they could do this to their own mother, my beloved grandmother, was beyond comprehension. As I dug deeper, Carol and David launched a furious counteroffensive, seeing their carefully constructed kingdom beginning to crumble. They tried to discredit me publicly within the family, spreading malicious rumors that I was unstable and obsessed with money, inventing outrageous stories about my supposed greedy nature and disrespect for family tradition. They called distant relatives, weeping about my cruelty and lack of compassion, turning every phone call into a smear campaign. They tried to poison the well of familial affection, isolating me. My cousins, swayed by Carol's tearful performances and David's stoic, wounded indignation began to distance themselves. Family gatherings became awkward, strained affairs, filled with forced smiles and hushed conversations whenever I entered the room. I felt isolated, an outsider in my own family, but the image of Grandma Rose's loving letter and the sheer audacity of their betrayal kept me going. I remembered summers at the lake, the smell of fresh cut grass and the sound of distant boats. Grandma teaching me how to skip smooth, flat stones across the water, her gentle laughter echoing through the trees. Those memories were real, tangible, unlike the endless web of lies they spun. The stakes grew higher when Arthur found irrefutable evidence that they had even forged my grandmother's signature on certain financial documents, including a power of attorney that gave them undue control. This wasn't just a bitter family dispute. It was criminal fraud, pure and simple. The serene beauty of the Adirondack landscape, with its towering pines and crystal-clear lakes, now seemed to mock the twisted darkness lurking within my own bloodline. The path ahead was lonely, fraught with emotional landmines, but the truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. I would walk that path, even if it meant walking it alone, because some things are worth fighting for, no matter the personal cost. With Arthur's relentless help, I finally filed a lawsuit. The day of the hearing in the county courthouse, a somber building made of sturdy local stone in a quiet upstate town, was cold and gray with a persistent drizzle falling, a fitting backdrop for the public unraveling of my family. Polished floors reflected the somber lighting, and whispered tensions filled the air. Carol and David arrived with their own high-powered attorney, a slick, expensive-looking man from a firm in New York City, looking confident, almost smug, as if this was just a minor inconvenience. They maintained their innocence, their attorney painting me as a vengeful opportunist, driven by greed and a desire to dismantle family unity. But the evidence Arthur had meticulously gathered was overwhelming. Stacks of bank statements showing regular, unexplained transfers to their personal accounts, dozens of fraudulent documents with my grandmother's obviously forged signature, and even damning testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed Carol and David coercing Grandma Rose during her more vulnerable moments, often with veiled threats about her needing help if she didn't comply. One elderly neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet woman who used to bake cookies for me as a child, tearfully recounted how Carol had rushed Grandma Rose through signing papers, saying, "Just trust us, Grandma. It's for your own good. You don't want to lose the house, do you?" Her voice had cracked with emotion, painting a vivid picture of their cruelty. The judge listened intently, his face impassive as the ugly truth unfolded in the sterile courtroom, each piece of evidence a crushing blow to their fabricated narrative. The room was filled with family members, some looking utterly shocked, others avoiding eye contact with me, still others clinging to their denial, their faces pale. My cousins, the ones who had sided with Carol and David, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The final ruling came swiftly and decisively. The original will was upheld, the property officially returned to me, and Carol and David were ordered to pay substantial restitution for the misappropriated funds, the fraudulent loans, and the emotional distress they had inflicted. The judge's words were sharp, condemning their actions as a heinous breach of trust and elder abuse. The victory, though absolute in its legal terms, felt hollow, tinged with a profound sadness. The legal battle was won, but the family, as I knew it, was irrevocably lost. On the way out of the courthouse, Carol glared at me, her eyes filled not with sorrow or regret, but with a cold, hateful rage I had never seen directed at me before. David said nothing, his face a mask of bitter defeat, his shoulders slumped. The silence between us, once filled with shared laughter and holiday greetings, was now heavier than any words, a gaping chasm that would never be bridged. The family gathering at the lake house for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Labor Day would never be the same. The very notion of family had been redefined for me, stripped bare of its comforting illusions. Years have passed since that day in court. The lake house is no longer just a house. It's a sanctuary, a true home, painstakingly restored and infused with new, honest memories. I've renovated it, brought life back into every corner, filled it with warmth and laughter, but always mindful of Grandma Rose's spirit, which feels more present and loving than ever. I often sit on the expansive porch, watching the sun set over the majestic Adirondack Mountains, the same mountains that have witnessed generations of my family, their silent peaks bearing witness to both joy and sorrow. The air is always crisp and clean here, carrying the scent of pine and fresh lake water, a stark contrast to the stifling, suffocating air of secrets and lies that once choked this place. The betrayal left deep, indelible scars, a constant reminder of how even those closest to us, those we love and trust most, can wound the most profoundly. But it also taught me resilience, a fierce independence, and an unshakable inner strength I never knew I possessed. I learned that family isn't just about blood ties. It's about trust, honesty, and shared values. And sometimes, to truly honor those values, you have to fight for them, even if it means tearing down the cherished illusions you once held dear. I've slowly, carefully forged new connections, found my chosen family, a diverse network of loyal friends, supportive colleagues, and even distant relatives who understood and stood by me, who stand by me, not because of obligation, but because of genuine respect, love, and shared integrity. This house, my grandmother's legacy, has become a living, breathing symbol of my strength, a monument to the battles fought and won, and to the enduring power of truth. I often think of Grandma Rose, her gentle smile, her unwavering spirit, and I hope she would be proud. Proud not just that I kept the house, her beloved home, but that I found my voice, uncovered the truth, and built a life on solid, honest ground, not on hidden secrets and the crumbling foundations of deceit. I am no longer defined by their lies, but by my own truth, my own strength, and the peace I finally found here by the lake. This place, once a battleground, is now my haven. What do you think about the choices I made? Have you ever had to stand up to your family for what was right, even when it meant risking everything? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and make sure to subscribe for more stories of resilience, justice, and the unwavering pursuit of truth.